Hello and welcome back to my Playing with Ephemera series. This is the 4th video. It's been a little bit since I've played in this junk journal, so I'm gonna kind of flip through, remind myself what I've already done in here. Everything that I've done in this journal, I've done using various writing and coloring implements, but also trying to use a lot of mostly the stuff from my ephemera bag. Again, haven't used this stuff in a while, so I'm just kind of reminding myself what's in there. I got some envelopes from some birth control packets, got a bookmark from a blind date with a book, some coffee stain paper, some images from other books that I've rescued for creative purposes, packaging from the blind date with a book. Today what we're going to be doing is creating clusters. And so a cluster is basically just what it sounds like, a cluster of ephemera that you can use to add a little bit of excitement to your junk journal pages. I find that I've been drawn to using them as like a journaling prompt almost. I almost always put some sort of word or phrase that I find that I can rip out or cut out from like a page of text. And so, yeah, so today we're going to be making some ephemera clusters. So I kind of went through all the stuff that was in my bag. I'm looking just for things that I might want to use. And so I pulled out the coffee stain paper. I'm going to start with that as the base. I love the ledger paper, so I'll use some of that as well. And then I do have some small little pieces of that. And I also like the security envelope paper. I like the patterns. There's so many different patterns. And so eventually I will move everything up so you can see it a little bit better on the screen. But I kind of always forget where the bottom of my frame is. And so, sorry about that. So now I'm just going through and kind of in my brain sort of assembling what I might want to do, looking to see what other little bits and pieces I might want to add. I love the color of the older papers. Yeah, there I am, doing all the stuff off screen. So I'm just tearing. The thing I like about the clusters is they don't need to be perfect. I will fix it here very shortly, I promise. The thing I love about junk journaling is it doesn't need to be perfect. I tried scrapbooking years and years and years ago, and I was so intimidated by it needed to be perfect and precise. Same with quilting. I tried quilting, like regular quilting, forever ago, and perfection is not one of my superpowers, and so I much prefer junk journaling because it doesn't need to be perfect. And so I started with that coffee paper layer, and then I added some of that brownish yellowed craft paper, I think is what it was. It was the wrapping for that blind date with a book. And then I just ripped up the security envelope and added that on there. And what I'm doing off screen, which you can't see, this is where I figured out that, nobody can see what I'm doing. So what I just did with the paper with the text on it is I cut out, nope, that's not text, that's the ledger paper. And so I was just adding another little piece of ledger paper, just a little extra. And now I'm trying to figure out what I want as like the main element. I know there's rules to collaging. I don't care what they are. I just go with what looks good to me. And so I like three or four layers and then like a main visual component. This is where I find the words. Excuse me. I've got a cold. It's going on way too long. But so this is what I was talking about, where when I have text paper, I'll look at the text and try to figure out, okay, what can I make out of here? And so this one I really liked because I was able to, out of all of that, pull out just the bits of words that I wanted. And here I'm just using a plain black ink pad to kind of, I think it's called burnishing the edges, to kind of make it pop a little bit more from the backgrounds. So I'm still learning all the ins and outs of videoing while crafting, and every time I rearrange my studio or every time we move, I have to refigure out how to do all that. So so the text on this one that I just pulled off, on the first one that I did, it was it said "with a soul," and I thought that was kind of neat. And so this one says family. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what I want, because it needed a little bit extra, needed to stick out a little bit extra. And I very much love the ripped edges. There's a time and place for beautifully cut, perfectly straight edges, and my junk journal is not one of them. And so, yep, so that says "with a soul," and I'm like, I like it. I feel like it's missing a little bit. So we're just gonna, before I glue everything down, we're just gonna kind of see. And then I reach for that jar of just random scraps, and I'm playing with the scraps, and I'm like, oh, I only want to be using what's in my ephemera bag. So I kind of played around with that for a second, and then decided to go with, so I was gonna put it underneath, kind of like a little nest. And then I remembered, oh, I have this cord that was in the ephemera bag. So I'm just going to pull off, I think it's macrame cord. It's left over from a project. And I'm just going to pull off a couple of strands. I don't want it to be super big and bulky. And so, so here I'm just going to pull off, I can't remember, 1 or 2 strands, maybe just 1 actually. And then I'm just going to create like that nest kind of, I guess, effect with just winding it up on my fingers and then placing it underneath the text. And there we go. And that's what I ended up with. And so I liked it. I was sitting there just kind of like, oh, okay, yep, I do like it. And now I'm going to start kind of gluing everything down. I'm just looking to see if I want to do anything different to the base. I decided to burnish the edges on this one too. Probably should have used a brown, but I had black on my desk, so that's what I used because it was easy. There we go. Yeah, I like it much better with the burnished edges. So, and then we're just going to go ahead and kind of do the same thing with the other one. But just gluing everything down. I don't know what this brand is, or I don't know, however you pronounce it. I have a couple of those for glue sticks. I also just have Elmer's glue sticks, and honestly, they all work pretty well. The only time I don't use a glue stick, and you'll see me use, I think it's Eileen's glue here in a few. The only time I don't use a glue stick is when I feel like there's too much texture for the glue stick to really hold it down. And so when I'm getting ready to put the thread down, I just kind of put a ton of the glue stick on the cluster, and then readjusted. I couldn't figure out how to do it. I didn't know how I wanted to do it. But I just wound up and nestified, because that's totally a word, the thread, stuck that down on there, stuck it to my finger, and then I'm using the Eileen's glue on the text, the back of the text, just so that it kind of will go through the thread and hold everything in place. All right, and so there's the first one. And I'm going to stop yapping. We'll listen to some sort of music while I make the second one. Alright, so I am just finishing up the second one, laid it out, same as the first one that I did. The word I ended up choosing for this was family. I pulled that from the blind date with the book packaging. It was part of like the description of the book. And just adding the thread, that was a talkie shaking. Just added the thread with the glue stick. Now I'm going to use the Eileen's to just, again, kind of help everything stick down, hopefully. So, but there we go. And then now I have my two clusters, and then let's take a look and see what I did in my journal with them. I ended up using that French dictionary page and then added some handwritten journaling. Thanks for watching.